ask for a motion, and unless there are questions or comments.
So
I'll make the
moved.
motion. Second, or whatever.
Thanks, Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. So now we'll go into the payment of the bills. And I had a chance to review these and got some additional conversation with Megan this morning. Just to be clear, I just want to make sure I was clear on what was happening with these bills. The ones that popped out are the Bello Electric check that you see there. It was the balance that we held over. If you were, and Megan reminded me, Bello did the demolition on the house on Pony Farm. We held back a payment to make sure that there were no issues with respect to permits or penalties or anything of that nature because of he rushed to get that done and didn't have the inspection, as we all recall. And that's all been cleared. So that was the final payment, the holdback that we had for that contract. Fox Hollow appeared to be a little high, but that's the annual bill for them to take care of the Big Hill, and so we get a larger charge every year to incorporate the mowing of the large field, and so that's why that one appears a little high. And then the tax reimbursements collectively, that the total $77,304 that are being paid is all with respect to Cooperstown Center, the one entity that pays through us. And then we remit those payments to the taxing authority. So those were the items that were a little bit that kind of popped out, that were larger and stood out. Megan and I also talked. She's going to update the totals on those reports, because on the deposit side, we also have the recorded deposit for $77,304, which then immediately is paid out to the taxing authorities, but those totals didn't foot, so that'll be corrected. So any questions or comments with respect to those or any other items on the bills? If not, I look for a motion to pay bills.
This is Cheryl, so moved.
Thank you,
I'll
Cheryl.
second.
Do a second.
Dave.
Thanks, Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Any opposed? No? All right, motion passes. Thank you. The financials, there was a flow of financials. You had the year-over-year comparative financials. You had the month-to-month financials with balance sheets. You also have the adopted budget with adjustments. So start there and then let you ask any questions if you have them. But Jody, do you have any commentary or additional thoughts with respect to the amended budget that you'd like to talk about? Jody, can you hear me? Jody, do you have any comment?
No, there's really nothing unusual. We actually had a good month. We netted about 59,000. I know our auditor takes out our depreciation, so he shows about 52,000 as opposed to 59,000. And then what isn't reflected in the numbers for August are the monies, the $50,000 we received from the Cooperstown Center. So that'll show up in next month. So actually, from a financial point of view, we're doing better than I expected, given the loss in revenues for this year. Actually, we're doing tremendous.
Yeah, given the you're correct. Got some things moving and done a good job in controlling expenses, and we're in pretty good shape at this moment. Any other comments or questions with respect to financial statements? Dave, if you're talking, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. The long-term issue with Foothills and Oneonta Theater, since I wasn't around when those were part of the balance sheet. Jody, can you tell me where that stands, or?
Right now, both with the Oneonta Theater and the Performing Arts Center, they each owe us $100,000. Those loans were made probably back in, I want to say 2013.
For you, yeah.
It was a number of years ago. We still show them on our books. Our accounting firm, our CPA has been slowly writing them off with reserves. However, there's a movement by a group of people to purchase the Oneonta Theater. And I had some discussions with them, and we still are anticipating if they purchase that, that will be paid off.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, in order for them to take ownership, would they not have to pay that off?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, or that we'd have to enter into a new agreement to amend the loan to that new group. But at this point in time, there's been no discussion about that. We just indicated that we as a public authority cannot just write it off. That would be considered a gift.
Right. Great.
Dave,
That answers my question.
yeah, Dave, as you can imagine, there are priority liens on both of those facilities ahead of the IDA. And
I assume that.
as far as the foothills, Jody, I haven't heard anything on that facility. Obviously, operationally, they're shut in. They were having trouble meeting their operating costs just to stay open. So that one is really a long-term, until somebody flinches and decides to either foreclose or sell a note or something. That's a long-term issue. We're hopeful that the theater does sell, because that would be a nice. It's funny how this stuff comes 360. A group should have bought the theater, renovated it, and used it for those purposes to start with. And maybe the foothills wouldn't be there.
Correct.
But that's conjecture. Sorry. So if there's no other questions, we'll move into new and unfinished business. Anything to discuss here, Jody?
The second round of applicants, we wanted the Audit and Finance Committee to approve. I sent those out yesterday. There's only 5 of them. So if there's any questions.
I did not see anything that raised any questions at all. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
No, and we're taking Cheryl's advice, and instead of waiting for the board meeting, we'd like to just have it approved by finance, and we'll send out checks.
Absolutely, yeah. So can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion, Dave.
I'll second.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Andrew. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Great.
you.
No opposed?
How much money is left?
We gave out 8,800 in the last meeting, and this is only 2,500, so quite a lot, about 39,000.
Has it been advertised or marketed at all?
So
Go ahead.
the chamber has posted it. We had it on All at Seago. I'm not sure if the Daily Star posted it, and then we've posted it. We could potentially market it more. I've had a few people tell me that a lot of them had to make these expenses prior to July 23rd, which was when we approved it. So that's been some people's holdup on applying. So I'm just hoping that maybe they have a second round of PPE that they have to order, and then they come to us. We had only originally done it until September 30th, but I don't think we're going to spend the money by then. So I think we could just keep it open until we spend it.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think when you hit now, even the colder months, as restaurants take back inside, you might hit a second round of need.
Yeah, both chambers, both the Cooperstown Chamber and the County Chamber sent notices to all their memberships. And the County Chamber last week sent a reminder to all their members that this money is available.
I also sent it to all the board supervisors and all the town supervisors. That I went through every town's website and just sent it off to them so they could give it to the businesses that are local. So.
Great.
Okay. So with that, I think we're finished with the Audit and Finance Committee. If I could get a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll second, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
All right, so
Hand
we'll
off.
jump into the projects meeting. You know, definitely seeing quite a bit of activity. I think a lot of the interest we thought might start taking place with relocation and movement is starting to take place here in the last month. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes here in the future. Jody and Megan have definitely been busy working through. Congratulations on the EDA grant for Richfield, although you were careful what you wish for. The work that's been put into kind of retaining IOXIS, and just again, the increased workload that you guys are taking on with all these different COVID related efforts. So thank you to you two for all that you're doing right now and getting us through this challenging time while holding down the fort on those projects that we have set as priorities. So overall, I think things are looking really promising here for the county. With that, I will move into the minutes from the August 13th committee meeting. Does anyone have any questions or changes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
That's
So move. I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff and Dave. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Hopefully there was a lot of good content in the project charter and director's report with the activity that's taking place, starting with the project charters. Jody, I don't know if there's anything specific you'd like to go through on those.
For custom electronics, because that one we're actually winding down. We did receive a time extension request, which allows us to grant until March 31st, March 15th of next year. We expect that the final bills for the construction of the renovations to his facility, as well as the final pieces of equipment, will actually be completed by December. So we'll be in very good shape to close that project out. We're going to probably, once that is closed out, we're going to start a new one for electronics companies, because we've been pushing hard with other electronic companies, and we want to continue that. On the Richfield Springs, I'd like to discuss that one first, because that has implications on the rail yards. On the Richfield Springs project, let me pull that one up. You'll see that EDA did approve the $1.2 million. We now have a choice to make, and that's where I have been having discussions, and I have another one today at 4:30 with the National Development Corporate Council. They're a not-for-profit that works nationwide on redevelopment of large projects. And the issue here has to do with Andela products and Ruby Lace glass. While we've received a substantial amount of funding right now, over $1.5 million for the infrastructure improvements, it still leaves a balance that we were planning on bonding for. However, in order to reduce that amount that we were bond for, I'm anticipating that we would probably sell the properties to two of the properties to Andela Products and Ruby Lace Glass for probably another $300,000. The real question comes up as to whether Andela and Ruby Lace Glass are in a position to go ahead with this project. And that's why I've brought in the National Development Council. We're going to have discussions about that this afternoon on whether, in fact, they put together the financing to actually build their building. Because while the grants that we've received right now, we don't have to reimburse if they don't go ahead and build. I have in the budget that we sent to EDA another roughly $115,000 for final designs, construction supervision, putting together bid documents. Based on the numbers of 9 new employees for the 2 companies, we could apply for roughly $150,000 from small cities grants. However, that money has to be paid back if they don't go ahead with the job creation. And so now we're entering a realm of making a decision. Do we want to apply for that money? Have that money then actually be paying for the final designs and bidding documents? And to be honest, I want to be more comfortable that Ruby Lace Glass and Andela are actually moving forward with this. They keep saying they are, but I haven't seen any financials. I haven't seen their business plans. About a year ago, I had meetings with 2 of their bankers who were looking at doing SBA 504 loan guarantees. And as the National Development Council pointed out, they probably would be better off if they went to rural development that would give them a 90% guarantee as opposed to a 75% under SBA. And so I'm trying to convince myself to where we're going with this before we spend any of our own money. That also brings us into the issue with the Oneonta Rail Yard project, because when we did the Richfield Springs project, we were very fortunate that a lot of the design work was done 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Keystone Associates really went through and had almost construction documents done for the extension of the water, the sewer, gas lines, the road improvements. So I basically talked to the county, and they allowed us to take $50,000 in community development monies that they had to hire Keystone to update all that information. So, and they didn't spend the entire amount. They spent probably $20,000 to update it. But that was good enough to do an EDA application. EDA was super impressed that we're ready to go. We have almost construction documents. We have all the permits. We have DEC sign off. We had the Army Corps sign off. We had the Archaeological Division of State Parks sign off. And so the project was ready to move. When we start talking about the Oneonta Rail Yards and doing an ADA grant, I pushed that out basically not till next year, but the year after. And the reason is that we have to have all that work done that we didn't need to do for Richfield Springs. And so therein lies, and that's where I mentioned to Cheryl just before the meeting that I've really got to revise those project charters for both Ruby Lace Glass, Richfield Springs, and the rail yard projects to really detail all the necessary steps that we have to go through in order to make these projects real. And I've been avoiding that because it really sets the tone for how much work there has to be done on these projects to make them realities. But we're at a point now where I have to do that because we got $1.2 million from EDA. And I don't want to, that's right now going to be my priority project because I want to show EDA that we're capable of doing this so that we can go back to them, because we're going to ask for double the amount, roughly 2.3 to 2.4 million for the rail yards project. And we can't assume that the state's going to step forward and help with any of this stuff for the next couple of years. So we're really looking to community development block grants, which are federal funds administered by the state, and EDA to help finance these projects. Otherwise, we're just going to spin our wheels. So that's kind of my dilemma where we are right now. And I wanted to be honest that I've really got to focus on these and get back to the projects committee with real live projects as opposed to pie in the sky. The easiest thing is to acquire a piece of property and say you want to build an industrial park on it. The harder thing is actually making it happen, and that's where we are right now. We're making big strides toward that, but I want to make sure that we don't screw anything up as we go forward. So that's kind of my spiel on those.
Yeah, and Jody, from my perspective, I would agree that if we can't deliver on the Richfield Springs, it's going to make the case much harder to get funding for the Oneonta Rail Yards. So I think it's really important that we figure out the direction for Richfield Springs and do we have the commitment to move forward there. So I do agree, getting the kind of both charters updated with milestones and realizing kind of that sequencing of events is going to be important. So.
Right, and again, remember that EDA funds are for the industrial park, as well as the state grant we got were for the infrastructure improvements. They were not tied to job creation. They were tied to providing a new industrial park. So we'll still move forward with it, and we'll make it happen. The difficulty we had on the Richfield Springs project was, well, there was 3 different issues. In real fairness to the MRB group, Mike Nadolo called me after we awarded the contract for them to work with us on the grant application and said that they didn't want to take our money. Richfield Springs isn't eligible. And so they were going to drop the project. We had the regional director for EDA because when I met with him, we discussed it, and he said there was a way to do it. So there was a way around the requirements in order to fund that project, but they were really looking to fund something in our county. The second one that we had was with their construction division because they really had some concerns on the numbers that we put in. We were able to work through that. The third obstacle we had was the legal division at EDA had some concerns about the structure of who's going to own it, how it was going to be administered, what the town and the village and the agreements between them to extend the lines, and we were able to make it through that. When we look at the rail yard project, it's actually technically a much easier sell because it is in an opportunity zone. In opportunity zones, projects get special treatment, special point awards to allow EDA funds to go into those projects. So I'm actually more optimistic with the rail yards, even though it's a much more work than we're going to have what we had to do on Richfield Springs. So with that, I'll stop. I'll take it.
Mike, I have a question. Production capacity in the office. You're taking on a lot more work, detailed work that your insight is critical to. Do we have to look at staff, increasing staff or contract labor for some of it? I mean, everybody's only got 168 hours a week. And, if there's more time on this, there's less time on something else. Can we keep all the plates in the air, Jody, and do this and do it right and do it timely?
Well, there was some of that issue as well. Megan's definitely overworked. I've been dumping on her. Now she's in community development grants. She's basically running the micro enterprise grant program for our office. The two of the areas that I can see that, and that's why I've been having some discussions with the National Development Council to help them. And I'm not saying I want to hire them because they're expensive, but maybe they could work under contract with Andela Products to get her piece of it solved, and have her pay for them. The real missing area is that we don't have an engineering firm that works with us on a regular basis that we can turn to on some of these projects. And until I get Jeff a draft budget, I don't know how we're going to pay for that. Now, that's not to say that, for example, community development funds can't be used to pay for design work, but again, that has to be tied to job creation. There may be some ability when we actually see some of our projects pay us our bills, whether it's the IOSIS, we're hoping to, Joe Scott's been working with them on trying to get documents signed. We're trying to clarify the budget, whether they're going to buy our building from us, those type of things. And there may be some windfall and revenue coming in for us to be able to spend $30,000 or $40,000, $50,000 on hiring an engineering firm to work with us on some of these projects. But it may come to it that, right now, state revenues, to be honest, I'm not even counting on county revenues for this coming. The county is at about a $15 million deficit right now. And they're going to have to take some hard looks at what they're going to cut out of their budget for next year. And unfortunate because if you look at like Montgomery County, all of their funding for building their industrial parks came from the county. The county actually loaned the IDA money to build those industrial parks, and as they sell property back, they're obligated to pay back some of the county funds. If they don't make any type of profit off their sales, the county doesn't, they just write it off. That's how much financed all of their industrial park development. Basically was paid for by county loans. If they didn't make any, our county just did that.
All right, I have to read, Jody, can I redirect my question? There's two issues you're talking about. Number one is, do you need additional staff to get things done? How you pay for them, to me, is a separate question. And how much more could we get done if you had additional competent staff, reach our goals quicker? That's the conversation I want to have. How we pay for it's a different conversation. So would you please address that part?
Yeah, I'll address that part. Right now, and we'll talk about it at the next governance committee meeting. But right now I'm looking at the possibility of finding a replacement for Megan's functions, because Megan is taking on a lot more responsibilities that normally I would do. And we're trying to groom Megan into being that position. So I'd like to throw additional development and meeting with companies and working on these projects, and have her have an assistant to take away some of the daily financial stuff that she does on a routine basis to free up her workload. And I believe that would be one least inexpensive way of bringing on another staff person, as opposed to hiring like a project manager at $50,000 or $60,000. And so that's the thought I'm having, is to have Megan be groomed into that position.
I'm fine with that, and that's growth. And for growing people, we have a future. But bringing anything we can take from her, give to somebody new, and multiply the total efforts, we'll get more done. We need job creation, and we don't have a lot. We can't. Time's wasting.
I agree with that.
Of course, I'm a little impatient.
And there may be some way. When I was in Delaware County, we started with a staff of 5 people, and when I left, we had a staff of 14. They were all paid for by federal and state grants over a 3 or 4 year contract for the type of work we're doing. I'm having some discussions with the regional director for Southern Tier 8, that she may be able to provide additional funding for some of the projects that we want to get done. Staff, paying for staffing. They received monies from EDA over a 3-year period to help build up their staff. And one of the issues is, can one of those staff be directly working in this office?
So Jody, I feel like we've talked about this a few times, right? And I don't know whether that's here or governance, but I really think, again, we're talking about a plan. We need to get a vision. We need to understand where we're going, what roles we need, and how we're going to get there, how we're going to fund that. So, which is the second part of what Tom was mentioning there. But I think it's good to talk about it here in terms of where we want to go, but I think we need to get it down in a plan to understand exactly the direction you're seeing. Get that in front of the governance committee to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then the secondary element is like, well, how do we fund that then? I think from a projects perspective, sorry, Tom, I know you're impatient, but we may have to slow down if we don't have the resources to move forward. And so that just really gets back to that vision. And again, focusing in on priorities, and we've taken on a lot of additional stuff this year. So making sure we understand the trade-offs when we take on something. Do we have to give something up to be able to accomplish that? So at this point, right, you guys haven't brought anything forward to this meeting to say, hey, we can't do this because we're now spending all this time on COVID-related efforts. So I'm making the assumption that you guys have the capacity to do it. But if that's not the case, you definitely need to bring that forward to understand our trade-offs and have that conversation here.
Again, right now, I do believe we have the capacity to handle what we're working on. But I think this agency wants to grow and do more than what we're currently doing, and do it quality, not piecemeal. Right now, I think we are doing a quality effort. We're basically administering 3 community development grants, where this agency never administered community development funding before. We did the Cooperstown Distillery, enterprise for the county. We have a really good working relationship with the small cities people in Albany. They really respect what we do, and we've actually closed out Cooperstown ahead of schedule, which they're extremely pleased about. Dave Bliss asked me to represent him in a regional discussion of the county's economy, I think in 2 weeks. And so we're seeing that the county is recognizing that we're actually capable of representing the county on regional discussions.
So I think that, again, that's all great. And I think that's because of the relationship building you've done over the last couple of years. But with that comes more asks. So even just you attending that event, which is great, is time from you to be able to work on things that we have on the docket. So again, I just want to focus on, you have to be the ones bringing forward if your capacity is tapped, and you can't focus on the things that we're saying are important, right? And we've added, again, a couple of things. We've added the marketing effort, which we're working with a consultant on, I realize. And we've added these COVID relief efforts and different grant disbursements that weren't on our docket to begin this year. So if that's something that's adding too much to your guys' plate, then we need to talk about that. And from our perspective, we can take stuff off the plate. From a governance perspective, we can talk about, do we need to add more resources and grow? So.
Yeah, please don't misunderstand me. You guys do a great job of everything. I'm impressed. You know, you're incredible. I just want to give you enough help so you can continue and run at a sustainable pace.
Definitely.
I agree, and I agree with what Cheryl said. I'd love to see a timeline about when would you like to get somebody else in there to free up Megan. That would be great. Great to see that, and then we can, you know, move forward hopefully.
Okay, I will work on that in development of the budget for next year.
Along with project milestone updates for 2 Broad. Okay, thanks, Jody, for all of that. Does anyone else have any questions on any of the 3 priority project charters? Okay. If not, we'll just move to the director's report. Again, a lot of good content in there. I think hopefully everyone had a chance to read that. So if there's anyone that has any questions or anything specific you'd like to dive in a little bit deeper beyond what Jody provided in the updates.
I have a question about I think Fieldstone Resort, where the homeowners from Long Island are purchasing that property. I had 2 questions related to that, Jody, mostly out of curiosity. Did they mention anything about continuing to run the facility that's there? And 2, what were they talking about as far as the number of residents that they were interested in building? Or did you not get those specifics?
I asked a specific question about how many houses per year. I mean, obviously, in order for you to make recommendations as to who to contact for helping build houses, are you talking about 1 or 2 houses? You're talking about 10 houses, or you're talking about 30 houses? She couldn't answer that question at that point when I talked to her last week. She did say that she was going to try to contact all 3 firms and start scheduling meetings with them. I think she was actually going to try to schedule them for this past weekend, Saturday or Sunday. But she did say.
What's the size of that property, Jody?
I think it's about 70 acres.
Okay. It seems to me that the folks buying that property might be a natural discussion or contact point for our marketing group who's looking to go downstate and attract people up here. They beat it. They're up here looking for a reason, and perhaps they have some connections with home-owned businesses and entrepreneurs that are looking to relocate beyond the scope of that project. So it seems like a natural discussion there.
Yeah, so we plan on having them contact them. I do have her phone number and her email address, so I'll share that with our marketing firms and ask them to reach out to them.
Was your sense, Jody, that they're looking not to create a development project, but primarily to create housing for their own group? That's
primarily, I got the impression that they were trying to do. They just wanted to get out of Long Island and find a more peaceful place. They were very interested in having some discussions with Otsego Rural Electric regarding high-speed internet access. So apparently some of them will be definitely working from home. And I did talk to Tim Johnson. He said they definitely consider that area.
great. You didn't mention to them that there's all kinds of areas down in Otsego to build?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, if we ever build another industrial park, it's going to be in a place that doesn't have all the constraints that Richfield Springs has and the Oneonta Rail Yards have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the director's report? Okay. Any new and unfinished business today? If not, I'd entertain a motion to
Bring up
adjourn.
any new business.
We don't need any more.
I move for adjournment.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second?
That motion.
Thank you, Dave. We are adjourned. Everyone have a fantastic day.
Thanks, you
You
too.
too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye,
That's
everyone.
all.
Right.